Well, he's finally landed. My battered and tattered King Ghidorah 91. So for this review, the question is, was this figure worth buying itself? Well, I'll be going ahead and giving insight and comparing it to the standard King Ghidorah 91, and seeing if it just improves or flat out regresses. Now, kicking things off, we have this massive box, King Ghidorah standing Battleborn shooting his kinda gravity beams? It's slightly disappointing there were never any actual gravity beams included with this figure. I do understand adding 3 beams would have meant a minor price hike, and part of me wonders if Hiya had ever factored in the beams at any point, or if any potential beams were not holding properly within the mouth. Regardless, they're digitally edited in. I will admittedly say it is a solid shot regardless of how you want to look at it. The left side shows an angled shot of Ghidorah, with the gravity beams in the background wrapping around from the front to the side. The right shows us a nice frontal view of our battle damaged King Ghidorah in all its glory. Top and bottom have nothing unique as usual, just clear indication of what you're getting. Flip it to the back and once again you get your general information, the QR code, and what can I say? Clean, it's uniformed, the usual we expect from Hiya Toys. A box art style that's essentially, if it ain't broken then don't fix it. So the actual action figure, you'll notice this figure is much darker than the standard vanilla Ghidorah. Now personally, I went back and revisited the action scenes and I don't recall at any point seeing King Ghidorah look much darker during or after the first battle. I do think it helps the scales and the mold pop a lot more. When the first figure released, I kinda debated on whether the gold was too extra and I didn't feel like the blacks popped enough. But here, the blacks are really apparent and the black wash combined with the darker gold certainly is not movie accurate to the film. However, I'd be lying if I didn't say this is a damn good application for this specific action figure, making this version stand out in the collection when I compare it to my other Ghidorahs. Now personally, if I could have it my way, I would have stuck to a brighter gold with a black wash that sticks out between the scales, but I digress. It's still an amazing distinctive piece to look over, with the mold that was already solid in the first place. Now I still believe the eyebrows are off slightly, and the eyes themselves, they look fantastic. In fact, they pop so much more with this coloration, so there's a huge contrast between the bright eyes to the blacks to the less vibrant gold. And when you compare this to the last Hiya King Ghidorah, the figure is so bright that you kinda overlook certain features. Here's a look at the chest with lots of texture may I add, beefy legs, solid painted toe claws, and here's a look at the back all the way down to its lengthy tail barbs, with the barbs at the tip end. Not a whole lot of variety in the colors used for this action figure, but then again this figure does not require a large color palette. If you examine the figure, you'll catch lots of transitions in the paint apps fading from a darker copper color to subtle dark golds peeking out. The barbs on the tail are a prime example of such. Another example would be the wings, which are beautiful to be honest. By the way, though stunning, these wings feature some of the damage seen in the movie, with the bottom right of the wing being absolutely decimated by Godzilla's breath, both sides with splits and cracks. Finally, the other side features a giant hole in the wing, the one that sent Ghidorah down to the depths of the ocean. Honestly, it's all pretty wicked. Part of me is kinda torn as to whether I like this approach more or how SH Monster Arts utilized the interchangeable wings. In fact, it would have been a solid idea to swap clean or damaged wings, but then again, like the addition of the gravity beams, this would have meant another price hike. So let's talk about the third major difference for this action figure, and that's the fact that it's missing the obvious head after Ghidorah f***ed around and found out with Godzilla. Now here's what I love about this. It's the way that Hiya Toys chose to detail the severed head, even though the movie doesn't give us a good shot. You get a look at the flesh and the bones, good stuff going on here. Now let's move to the articulation. So before I went ahead and started articulating this one fully, I went back to the previous version to kind of refresh my mind. The goal was to basically see where we improved or where we didn't. On the last version, the articulation wasn't exactly stiff to the point I complained. But here, it's more fluent, and as I move on with this review, I'll go ahead and point out the key areas. We have hinged jaws, lots of ranged, tongue articulation, superior neck movement which has 10 cuts each on the left and the right neck. The severed head only has 5 points of articulation, all on smooth ball joints. We have our abs that rock and roll all the way around, which is funny because on the last version it's much smoother. However, it means it struggles a bit to hold posture, but this is only minorly. Meanwhile, the battle damage variant holds the posture much better and I really love that. The legs move in and out and up and down, double jointed knees which are improved upon versus the last version, a cut around the ankles, and of course foot articulation. The tail has 16 ball joint segments, just as impressive as the last variant. Next we have PVC bendy wires within the wings that are attached to hinged joints that are super smooth compared to the last version, which would kind of pop if you moved him. Here, this time, it's seamless, much faster, no resistance. Honestly, it's an improvement. In this department, I wasn't asking for any improvement, but I'll take it. So what about the accessories? Normally, I feel like Hiya Toys has been kind of sleeping on accessories, but here we've got some. We have the severed head, fully articulated with the additional 5 segments, a hinged jaw and a movable tongue. Next we have an additional neck joint, which I'll talk more about this in a moment. To my delight and surprise, Hiya Toys actually included an actual physical instruction manual. Honestly, this is one of those things that's kind of obsolete this day and age. They could have easily just included a QR code that would take you to a PDF. Regardless, I applaud the inclusion of this physically, because even though this isn't rocket science, it's helpful for older buyers that don't constantly buy figures these days. And I get it, most of us can go to Reddit or YouTube if we need a visual aid, and don't worry, I'm gonna give you guys a visual aid. Firstly, I'd spread both the left and the right head. Press in on the pliable end of the joint, and with no effort you'll have it off. Give the extra ball joint some soft pressure, enough to the point to where it locks in. If you need a little help, get a hairdryer. Nextly, with the severed head, move and wiggle the flesh upwards, get a grasp and pull. Now it's time to plug the head in, and you got it. I'll admit getting that base joint on is kind of a fight at first. Do what you want, I prefer my battle damage King Ghidorah with 2 heads. Now the traditional size comparison. King Ghidorah 91, SH Monster Arts Mecha King Ghidorah, Mecha Godzilla 89, Mecha Godzilla 54, SH Monster Arts Hedorah, Hiya Godzilla 91, Hiya Godzilla 2000, Hiya Skullcrawler, SH Monster Arts Mecha Godzilla 21. So verdict time, do I recommend this action figure? I'm gonna be real with you guys, it's always hard to flat out recommend a battle damage variant regardless of how impressive it is. Especially when the standard version has been out for a minute and likely so you've already bought it and spent 100 plus on it. But doing it one more time, don't get me wrong, this is a brilliant figure with improved articulation, extra goodies, and if you're satisfied with the last release and the money spent, you probably won't need this version. But if you're a completist and you're okay with slinging an extra $100 plus shipping and handling, you'll find enjoyment with this figure in your collection. I've left a link down in the info section if you'd like to go ahead and order this figure. Also, I've included my link tree, which features both pre-orders and figures that I'm endorsing on this channel. Ordering from the link tree does help this channel out, so that is one thing I do want to go ahead and point out. Ultimately, this is a solid figure itself, and I hold it in higher regard than most of Hiya's other variants. Solid sculpt, paint apps that don't miss, just have an honest conversation with your wallet. If you want one King Ghidorah, I'd go ahead and say go with the standard. Thanks for joining me, I appreciate you guys checking out my channel. Expect a Hiya Heat Ray Godzilla 2000 review soon. Go in Destruction out.